My name's Tyler, and I work at this boring office job in Denver, Colorado. Nothing special about me, really. I drive a Honda Civic that makes weird noises when I brake, and I live alone in a small apartment near downtown. Oh, and I have this stupid habit of always ordering the same coffee, medium dark roast with oat milk. Sounds normal, right? Yeah, well, it was until she showed up again. Her name was Caitlin. We dated for about 8 months last year, and honestly, it ended pretty bad. She was intense, like really intense. The kind of person who would text you 30 times if you didn't answer within an hour. I thought I was being dramatic back then, but looking back now, I should have seen the signs. The first time I saw her after our breakup was at Brew and Bean, this little cafe on 16th Street that I go to every morning before work. I was standing in line, scrolling through my phone like usual, when I heard this familiar laugh behind me. I turned around and there she was. Caitlin's same blonde hair, same bright smile, same everything. "Tyler," she said, acting all surprised. What a coincidence. I was polite, said hi, made small talk for like 2 minutes. When the barista called out my order, I grabbed my coffee and started heading out. That's when I heard her order the exact same thing, medium dark roast with oat milk, the same drink she used to make fun of me for ordering when we were together. She always said it tasted like dirt water. I figured it was just weird timing. Denver's not that big, and that cafe is pretty popular. People change their coffee preferences all the time, right? I forgot about it and went to work, but then it happened again, and again. For the next 2 weeks, every single morning, she was there. Sometimes behind me in line, sometimes sitting at a corner table with her laptop open, always with that same coffee order. She'd wave and smile, but never tried to talk to me again. Just watched. I started feeling uncomfortable. Like really uncomfortable. So I switched cafes. There's this place called Morning Grind on Colfax Avenue that's only 10 minutes out of my way. Problem solved, right? Wrong. 3 days later, she was there too, sitting at the exact table I usually picked, the one by the window with the good Wi-Fi signal. She looked up from her phone when I walked in, smiled that rehearsed smile, and went back to whatever she was doing. My hands were shaking a little when I ordered. I grabbed my coffee and sat at a different table, but I could feel her eyes on me the whole time. When I finally got the nerve to look over, she was gone, but there was something unsettling about how she seemed to know exactly where I'd want to sit. That's when things started getting really weird. I began changing my routine completely. Different cafe every day, different times, different routes to work. I even started taking the bus instead of driving sometimes, just to mix things up. But somehow, small signs kept appearing that made me feel like I was being watched. A glimpse of blonde hair disappearing around a corner when I looked back. The same white Honda CR-V I'd see parked on different streets along my route. The coffee shops began feeling less like coincidences and more like a pattern. Not that she was always there, but I'd find tables still warm, like someone had just left, or baristas would mention a woman asking if a guy named Tyler had been in yet. I remember one morning at this place called Roasted Bean on East Colfax, the barista casually mentioned that a woman had been asking about me earlier. Pretty blonde girl, said she was an old friend, waited here for like an hour but left just before you showed up. The description matched Caitlin perfectly. Work became my safe space, or at least I thought it did. I work for this insurance company downtown. Boring cubicle job, but the building has decent security. You need a badge to get past the lobby. That's why I was so confused when I found the package on my desk one Tuesday morning. It was small, wrapped in brown paper with my name written in handwriting I recognized immediately. Caitlin's handwriting. All curved letters and little hearts over the eyes, just like the notes she used to leave me when we were dating. Inside was a coffee shop receipt from the day before, and a note that said, "Miss seeing you," in that same cutesy handwriting. I went straight to HR. Karen from Human Resources was nice enough, said she'd look into it and asked me to leave the note with her. I filled out some paperwork, explained the situation. She seemed concerned, promised to check the security footage and talk to building management about tightening access. The next day, when I asked Karen for an update, she looked confused. "What note?" she said. "I don't have any record of you filing a complaint." The file was gone. The note was gone. Even the paperwork I'd filled out had disappeared. That's when I started getting paranoid. Like really paranoid. I began looking over my shoulder everywhere I went, checking my rear view mirror constantly, double-checking that my apartment door was locked. My friends started noticing something was off. Jake, my buddy from college, called me one evening. "Dude, someone's been asking weird questions about you," he said. "What kind of questions?" "Like, specific stuff. What time you usually get home from work, whether you're dating anyone, what your favorite restaurants are." The number was blocked, but it was definitely a woman. My stomach dropped. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing, man. It was creepy as hell. But she seemed to know things already. Like she mentioned that Thai place you like on South Broadway. How would some random person know that?" I called my other friends. Same story. Everyone had gotten calls or texts from unknown numbers. Always a woman asking casual questions about my routine, my habits, where I hung out. Most of them had hung up, but the caller seemed to have information already. Mrs. Chen, my neighbor across the hall, knocked on my door that weekend. "Tyler, honey," she said in her broken English, "someone been watching your apartment." She explained that she'd seen a woman sitting in a car outside our building multiple times, always looking up at my window. The woman had even gotten out once and appeared to be taking photos of the building. "She there for hours," Mrs. Chen said. "Just sitting, watching. Very strange." I asked her to describe the woman. Blonde hair, pretty smile, drove a white Honda CR-V. Caitlin's car. That night I couldn't sleep. Every little noise made me jump. Around 3 a.m., I heard something that sounded like footsteps in the hallway outside my door. Slow, deliberate steps that stopped right in front of my apartment. The next morning I found a coffee cup on my doormat. Empty, but it smelled like that oat milk coffee I always ordered. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty, but I could have sworn I heard breathing on the other side. I decided to install a security camera. Nothing fancy, just one of those wireless ones you can buy online. I set it up to record the hallway outside my door. The footage from the first night was normal. People coming and going, Mrs. Chen getting her mail, the usual stuff. But on the third night, around 2:30 a.m., I saw something that made my blood run cold. A figure was standing in the hallway, perfectly still, just staring at my door. The image was grainy, but the silhouette looked familiar. The person wasn't moving, wasn't doing anything suspicious. Just standing there like a statue for almost 20 minutes. Then they placed something on my doormat and left. The something was another coffee cup. I called the police the next day, showed them the video, explained everything that had been happening. The officer was professional, took notes, said they'd file a report and try to contact her. "Has she threatened you directly?" he asked. "Well, no, not exactly." "Any explicit threats or attempts to break in?" "No, but look, I understand this is unsettling, but unless she makes a direct threat or violates a restraining order, there's not much we can do. Document everything, avoid contact, and call us if the situation escalates." They left without making any arrests. I felt more helpless than ever. Around this time, I noticed she was active on social media again. Caitlin had blocked me on everything after our breakup, but friends started telling me about strange activity. She was liking old photos I'd posted months ago, not recent stuff. Old photos from when we were together. The likes were weird inside jokes that only she would understand. References to conversations we'd had, places we'd been together, things I'd told her in private. It was like she was proving she still remembered everything. I also started getting silent phone calls at work. The caller ID was blocked, but they'd hang up as soon as I answered. Sometimes I'd hear breathing, sometimes just silence. I stopped posting on social media completely, deleted Instagram, Facebook, everything, but the weird shit at work continued. Most mornings when I got to my desk, there was a coffee ring, like someone had set down a mug and left it there long enough to leave a stain. Maintenance said they cleaned all the desks every night, but the rings kept appearing. One morning the ring was still wet, not just damp, but actually wet, like someone had just picked up their mug and walked away seconds before I arrived. I started getting to work earlier and earlier, trying to catch whoever was doing it, but it didn't matter if I showed up at 6 a.m. or 8 a.m. The ring was always there, always fresh. My boss noticed I was acting strange. My work was suffering because I couldn't concentrate. I kept looking over my shoulder, jumping at every little noise. I took some vacation days, thinking maybe if I stayed home for a while things would calm down. They didn't. The packages kept coming to my apartment. Always small things. Grocery receipts, coffee shop napkins, sometimes just empty envelopes with my name on them. They showed up even when I was home all day, even when I was watching the door. I changed my locks twice. Didn't help. The receipts were the strangest part. They were all from places around the city, but the timestamps were always when I knew I was somewhere else. Like she was creating some kind of shadow timeline of my life. How was that possible? I started staying at Jake's place some nights, just to get away from my apartment. But even there, I'd get this unsettling feeling that I was being watched. Jake mentioned seeing the same white CRV parked on his street multiple times. Jake got freaked out too when I told him about everything. He suggested maybe I should get a restraining order, but what proof did I have? Everything was just weird coincidence that could be explained away. "Dude, this is seriously messed up," he said one night while we were watching TV. "Have you thought about maybe moving to a different city? Like completely starting over?" I had thought about it. A lot, actually, but something told me it wouldn't matter. She'd find me somehow. She always did. The weird thing was, I started having dreams about her. Not nightmares exactly, but strange dreams where she was always just out of sight. Like I'd turn a corner in the dream and catch a glimpse of her blonde hair disappearing around another corner. Or I'd hear her laugh echoing from somewhere I couldn't locate. I woke up one morning at Jake's place in a cold sweat. I'd been dreaming that she was sitting at the foot of the bed, just watching me sleep. When I opened my eyes, the room was empty, but I could swear I smelled that vanilla perfume she always wore. Jake was already gone for work, but there was a note on his kitchen counter. Not from Jake. His handwriting was completely different. This note just said, "Sweet dreams," in that familiar curved handwriting, with a little heart over the I. I called Jake immediately, hands shaking as I dialed. "Did you leave a note on your counter?" I asked as soon as he picked up. "What note?" I didn't leave any note. I described it to him, but he sounded confused and worried. He said he'd locked the door when he left, same as always. The spare key was still in its hiding spot under the fake rock by his front steps. She was always one step ahead. The final straw came 3 weeks ago. I decided to take a weekend trip to Colorado Springs, just to get out of Denver completely. I didn't tell anyone where I was going, paid cash for everything, turned off my phone's location services. On Saturday morning, I was having breakfast at this little diner downtown, middle of nowhere, random place I'd never been before. I looked up for my eggs, and there she was, sitting 3 tables away, drinking coffee and reading a newspaper like it was the most natural thing in the world. Our eyes met for just a second. She smiled that same rehearsed smile, folded her newspaper, left money on the table, and walked out. I sat there shaking for probably 15 minutes before I could move. When I got back to my apartment that Sunday night, there was an empty coffee cup on my doorstep, still warm. Now I keep my blinds closed all the time. I don't go to cafes anymore. I make coffee at home. I changed my phone number, moved to a different apartment across town, even switched jobs. But this morning, when I opened my front door to leave for work, there was something on my doormat that made my blood run cold. A folded napkin, placed perfectly in the center. She's still out there, still watching, still one step ahead, and I'm starting to think she always will be. The worst part, I can't prove any of this shit actually happened. The security footage mysteriously disappeared. The HR complaints vanished. Even the police report seems to have gotten lost somewhere in the system. Sometimes I wonder if I'm going crazy, but then I find another coffee ring, another napkin, another empty cup, and I know she's real. I know she's watching. I just don't know what she wants anymore. All I know is that I'm never safe. Not really. Because somewhere out there, Caitlin is planning her next move, and I'll never see it coming until it's too late. Or maybe she's already closer than I think.